Hey folks, we're trying to build a landscape for our store. We have a little store that I gave you. We're going to put a landscape on there, give it a little bit of contour perhaps, and then how do you put a parking lot, sidewalk, things like that, so they're not just flat, but they actually look like they follow the contours of that land. So I just want to show you how to do that. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go to What Else SketchUp. Here we are. There's our store. Beautiful. I kind of want to figure out how I'm going to put a sidewalk and a parking lot in here. I'm going to go fairly quickly on this thing. I hope everything works okay, but we'll see. Maybe things things go wrong, it gets better. I'm just going to get my R for rectangle tool and say, let's go kind of fly up in the air here a little bit. See what I want to do with the rectangle tool to draw things like perhaps a sidewalk that goes across the front of my store here, and then maybe we'll put a driveway like, maybe here, and then we'll maybe put a parking lot kind of like there so people can park their cars in the Harvard yard. So as you can see, I've got a bunch of leftover junk. I would go back if I were doing this for serious and go back and clean up some of these edges, maybe give it some rounded corners, things like that. But you'll get the idea. Basically, what I want to do is create the shapes that I want to use for these various things. So now I've got one big fat thing that is my sidewalk and my parking lot. I haven't done anything with fills yet. I'm not going to worry about that stuff yet. Um, I also, you'll notice, have not yet made my landscape. All I've done so far is draw these shapes. Now I'm going to get my move tool and tap my up arrow and fly that up in the air some distance. I kind of don't care. 29 feet. Sure, great. Now what I'm going to do is go, okay, I'm going to we did this in class. I hope you remember. Get your sandbox tools. If you don't see your sandbox tools, they live right there. Sandbox, yay. And if you're on the web version, you won't see this. It doesn't exist. It's on the desktop version. If you get into this tool, you'll see the second one down here gives you a chance to make your grid from scratch. We are going to do that. So I'm just going to give myself enough room here that I can set that. You'll notice, sorry, before I get going on that, I'm going to keep doing that. From scratch, when I click on it, it says grid spacing 10 feet down here. That's fine. You might find you want a finer grid depending on how big you're doing your piece. I like to work on the axes. You notice my line just turned red because I'm parallel to the red axis. So that helps a little bit. And I'm going to pull it down until I get kind of a nice big space like that. Okay, now I have a landscape and I have a sidewalk, parking lot, things like that. I'm going to get my smooth tool, third one down here, that gives me a chance to play with this thing. But you'll say, Tom, you can't work on it yet. The landscape, this grid that I built, is a group. So double click it to open it up. It hides everything else. Then I'm going to get my smooth tool, and my smooth tool says I'm 30 feet wide, and it shows you a circle of how big 30 feet wide is. I might make that 100 feet wide just for the heck of it and go, I don't want to edit a lot. I just want to kind of add a little bit of contour to this space in here so it kind of shows. And I want you to be able to see what happens when we put the sidewalk and the parking lot onto this surface. So far, okay? I'm going to go back here, get my regular tool, get out of this box, and you'll notice here we are. There's our store. Store is kind of buried in the ground. We can fix that. But there's our parking lot and our sidewalk, and I know it's in the right place relative to the store. But what I want to do is drape this onto this surface so it doesn't look like it's floating in the air, and we don't have to try to match up every single square. So here's the trick for that. This is the drape tool right there. What is that? 5 down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. I love to count. So here's the trick. I've got to get this guy. If we double click it, we open it up. We're actually going to explode this. So right click or control click to say explode me. Now you can see the hidden geometry of how this whole thing is built. Then what we're going to do is soften smooth these edges. Control click again. Soften that just a bit. You don't have to do everything, but you kind of get rid of that really hard edge there. So now we got kind of a nice look there. All right, now comes the fun part. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab my drape tool. So I've grabbed my parking lot, sidewalk, whatever you want to call it, drape tool, and then it says, what would you like to drape it onto? And I go, I want to drape it onto this. And you see what happens. It puts that shape that we drew onto the surface in a way that looks like it follows the contours of our landscape. Pretty cool. Even more betterer, that's a separate shape. So now I can fill that with something else. If I get into my materials and go, I want to take a look at asphalt and concrete and pick one of these and say, I want that to be my fill pattern for my sidewalk and my concrete, or my sidewalk and concrete. Um, the new version, I'm in SketchUp 2026, doesn't have grass, vegetation, things like that. I've got some solid colors that I can use like that and go, okay, this is going to be my grass, and put that on there. Wow, that's a hot grass. So you can fool around with this thing until your heart's content. But you see how important that is to be able to have two separate shapes, one that I can fill with a different color, but that it follows that landscape. Now that I've done that, I can throw this away. Now that I've got that going, I can grab this building or the landscape and move it down and say, I want to get you out of the way. Whoops, I better get everybody. So you can kind of see I'm going to grab all of it. One of the things that I've done is to make the roof a separate piece, so it's two different things. So now I can move that all down and go move it on the vertical and set that down there. And then we can do things, as I said, like I can come back in here and put a basement on this, fool around with stuff like that. But hopefully that helps you in terms of understanding how to drape your object, your air, landscape, sidewalk, parking lot, anything you want to put onto that surface. You can draw it, float it up in the air. Then there's a couple of tricky steps in the middle there. You saw what I did. But that's the trick for how to put your landscape together, get that functioning for you, and make something pretty cool. I hope that's good for you. I will talk to you later. Go do something amazing. See ya.